Medina SoulogyOneStudios.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
It's also a SoulogyOneStudios production. Appreciate Chucky for the good beats. Let's do it. Confusing our minds, abusing our lives, diluting our pride, dividing mankind, forced brothers, sisters against each other, tried to own the spirit of Gaia Mother. You know her, she lives in you, you live in her, but you're supposed to love her, not own her. So before you go talking that talk you ain't walking, ask yourself, who are you? Are you better than me? Am I better than you? Is she? What about him? There is no sin, it's ours to win. No religious spin, it's not a game, it's a walk of fame. Soul Highway. You getting my drift? It's been slowing us down, got memories to recover, new worlds discovered. Removing the lines, to thine own self be true, uncovered. This truth set straight in our eyes. Shedding the skins, breaking the shell, removing this spell, another candidate trying to sell. If I'm going to hell, gonna be for my mind, heart, spirit curled into the arms of oneness. Not the false flags unfurled, lies bringing wars. I will not ignore a world we create ourselves. Cause I'm on the soul highway, man. There is no sin, it's ours to win. No religious spin, it's not a game. Walk of fame. Soul highway. I ain't chasing anything. I ain't bracing for anything. Man, God's no threat to me. Diamonds in the rough, we just as tough. Come through the same Stargate as my brothers. Come from the same palace where all you sisters are the queens. We cannot rule out Anunnaki, reptilian bloodline royalty, Project Blue Gleam. We're gonna rule in the gods we followed. You know, selling a nirvana, come tomorrow. Sticking us with an attitude as long as it doesn't happen to me. It's okay if it happens to you? Nah, that's just not true. Little freestyle. We are the magic. Don't feed the tragic. That doesn't mean don't act like it doesn't go on, because you know that it does, but don't let it get to you. Not to the point where it brings out all those fear-based, charismatic children, all those wild emotions that we try to substantiate like anger and jealousy and hate. Yeah, that's not our fate. Yeah. Fear of faith, that's what it's all about. So bring your A game. This is the Ascension, the apocalyptic unveiling. This is our lives we are unveiling. And I'll see you there on the Soul Highway. That's what this game is all about. For every step you take away from the world, you walk toward the other side of truth. And that's Soulogy. Namaste. How's it going, everybody? Got Matthew Mournian in the house from LA. We're going to see what he's been doing. I just missed him at Resonate Fest. I thought we were going to be there, but we weren't, and he was. So we're going to catch up with him. We haven't caught up with him in a while. If these shows resonate, please share. We're not allowed to, and all that stuff. Thank you for your continued love and support and contributions. Allow us to keep doing this every day. What's up, brother?
How's it going? It's very, very good to see you. Very good to see you. I'm on a new computer here, and my lighting is so strange. Hopefully that looks. Hopefully that's okay.
I thought you were just turning into one of your multi-dimensional star family aspects.
I might have been.
So we just missed you, Morgan and I, at Resonate Fest. You presented at Resonate Fest, right?
Yes, yeah, we certainly did. That was an interesting experience. Really, really, really cool. That's kind of the first time I'd ever done something like a festival like that. Hopefully, it will not be the last. But yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, some very good friends of mine put that on. Um, I met him a year ago, the day I was leaving Sedona last year after about 6 or 7 weeks, and they had come in for the first day. Jade Lyons and Neil, and I know Christy was a part of that. I met her when I was there this last time. But yeah, so yeah, we did a little promo for them, and they put a Soulogy stage up for us, and I thought we were going to go, but we just couldn't hang financially, man. We had like
I
just
feel
enough
you.
gas money over into this cabin in Northern California, so we patched you up. I was in LA in
I heard.
August, and I
Yeah,
think
I heard. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
and you know,
it's
and
a
maybe
strange realm, though, isn't it? LA. Definitely, it has certainly changed,
well, I
has it
lived there.
not?
Yeah, I lived there twice in 2000 and then in 2004. Yeah, it's we were in what is it called? Uh, Laguna Beach
Oh, nice,
for three
nice.
days, and then Ventura Beach for about 4 weeks. And yeah, it's everywhere is different. They're like little cities within the city. You know, everywhere you go. Kind of, we were
Yeah,
in Compton, not Compton, but in, South Central.
yeah. There are
Um,
some really cool areas if you can find them, but yeah. So
so yeah, you know, I mean, it's been a while since we talked. Uh, I did get your message that you just sent me. We'll do that.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
But I want to talk. I want to just get up to speed on where you're at. You know, you've been on, I think, 3 times. It's probably been 6 months. But you talked a lot about your awakening and your practice and some of your experiences. Have you had what's been going on with you since we last talked? I mean, this has been a very transformating. Is that a word?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it
Transformation,
is.
transformational year, and October was particularly as it should be, since it was the last month. It was particularly solid.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
you been?
It has, I would say, and probably for everyone else that is watching this, and I just want to say hey to everyone out there, all of you guys that are tuning in. This has probably been, in my opinion, the most transformative year that many of us have had in this life cycle thus far, meaning that for many of us, we started out this year as one version of ourselves, and here we are inevitably coming toward the end of it. And I know yourself, myself, many other people that will be seeing this, we have quite literally gone through a transformation process. And
I
it's
think
been
I'm
a
on my 100. I think I'm on my 140th version of myself this year, and I'm hoping it stops at 144.
yeah, what's wild is we're just gonna keep on rolling. But that said, for me, this has been an incredible year of, I think, establishing self-identity within kind of the energetic realm and the practice that I've been working with. And you know, for those of you guys who are just now encountering me for the first time and you're like, who is this weird guy up here? I want to start out by saying welcome to fourth density. This is a thing that we are living in right now. Everyone's caught up in the like the 5D frequencies. But the reality is, at this stage, for many of us, we are experiencing on this physical plane fourth density, fourth dimensional energy. And so for me, the year of 2019 has been all about creating, understanding, working with, but most importantly, helping other people awaken those frequencies within themselves. And so I think you and I last talked probably, I think it was in July, if I recall. And I think July, heading into that Lions Gate thing in August
July was a
was
big one.
dude, was it
Yeah,
not?
July
It
was a
was like
that was like
totally.
a that was like the masculine wound. Like I pulled like a big sword out of me.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just said,
very
I
much.
wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, maybe this is more personal, less for the audience, but I think everybody would like to know. Uh, you know, I find it interesting how people like you um, flow every day. What I mean by that is, you know, everybody's unique in the way they communicate with the universal. What's your MO? I mean, do you connect with specific guides? Do you connect with one voice? Uh, are you getting a lot of collective intel, or is it mostly personal intel? I mean, what's going on in that relationship?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking. I would say at this stage of the game, my primary like connective force is what I call the higher self, or in my case, what I believe to be a multi-dimensional higher self council. And so I think for a lot of us, as we go through this a life cycle, and maybe it's not everyone, but for me, and I know many others, what we understand as being the higher self, or what is in many cases what we might call the spirit team or our guides, they're actually higher dimensional versions of ourselves, or consciousnesses that we have existed as, or do concurrently exist as on a number of planes. And so I would like to say at this stage, my intention is to connect solely with the multi-dimensional selves of me, myself,
Yeah.
Matthew, and
Yeah.
I think along with that, we get a lot of ancestor energy. I think we get a lot of
Yeah.
ET, or what we might call ET energy. We also get a lot of, past, present, and future physical, sometimes human and non-human versions of ourselves. And so
Yeah.
I would like to say that for the majority of my mission at this stage is, I would like to say, it's getting people in touch with that multi-dimensional version of you. And so I don't really like
Yeah.
connect with angels. I don't connect with,
Yeah.
ascended
And maybe,
masters. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe at the end of the day, whether we are connecting, well, I mean, we know it's all one, so we're all connecting with the same thing. But I agree with you. If I look at the evolution, particularly this year, with the experiences Morgan and I have, that in all regards, it's becoming clearer and clearer that anything I'm looking at is literally myself. So if it comes in as let's just say, a dark gray energy, ball of energy or something in the room, or it morphs into this or that, it's telling me something. It's got a message for me. And so much of the answers seem to be, at this point for me, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, are yes, please, and I surrender, which I learned from Morgan. but yeah, really the surrender thing. I mean, it's almost like, okay, if, for instance, if I go back 3 or 4 years ago, I might, say if a certain energy came into the room and I was by myself, I might be like, okay, this is my house. You don't have permission to be here. And now it's more of, okay, open my heart and just start surrendering and merging. And yeah, it seems to be, balancing out a little bit, at least my understanding and my comfortability, my ability to be comfortable with, really any energy that comes in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think a lot of that
Do you?
equates. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say there is, I think a lot of that equates to what many people call knowledge of self, or the knowledge of, who we might say who I am, or who, like Todd is. And, that stage that we come through during this path, or this life cycle, in which we begin to understand, what is my energy? What is your energy? And I think that for a lot of us, and I shouldn't say everyone, in my case, when I began to have what I understood to be real multi-dimensional experiences, a lot of it was based upon my own frequency and the emotions and kind of the programming and the ideas that I had, going on at the time. And those have really, really changed over the past few years. And I would say along with that, maybe the nature of, what I would call contacts, quote unquote, has changed. But by and large, when we're talking about what I might term, negative energetic manifestations, I wouldn't necessarily call those us, or us looking into the eyes of the one infinite, like creator. I think what they actually are is unhealed aspects, oftentimes, sometimes fourth density beings, or something like energetic parasites that will be responding to whatever that unhealed frequency is within our bodies. And for those of you guys watching today, one of the biggest areas that's active right now, and some of you guys are going to feel this as I talk about it, it's the solar plexus. This is a big storehouse that's coming online for a lot of us. But anyway, yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I get that we're like magnets, so whatever it is that, if we have a door open through a wound, then we're going to have a matching energy come in, or whatever, however you want to put it. But I don't know how it works. I do find the science of it interesting. But I look at it like, okay, well, it's not about what I would or wouldn't allow to come into me. I mean, I think there's a difference between a choice you make and integrating with all aspects of the universe, So I don't know. I look at it like they need light too. That's why I'm
Right.
here. You know, a lot of people talk about I'm not done till the last soul goes home. Now, you sent me a note, and I want to just start with that in regard to ascension symptoms and body changes as we go through these shifts. Now, so the first thing is I want to just kind of go over that, you know, and we're going to ask anyone who's got any questions regarding ascension symptoms or body changes to put them up, and I'll get to them, and we'll ask Matthew. But now, is this part of your purpose or your function as you see it? You're attuned to the body as the vehicle in this transformation and the things that it's sensitive to or the things that are happening to it, and kind of being able to guide people through that?
Yeah, I really like the way that you phrase that. What I've come to understand over the past, what's almost 3 years now, I think I began doing this officially full time right at the end of 2016. And moving into 2017, excuse me. And so within that time period, especially in the year of 2019, I noticed that my work started kind of taking a little bit of a shift or a change. And what I began to do is kind of track, understand, and figure out some of what I believe are the specific frequencies that are activating within layers of our energetic anatomy. And by that, what I mean is the meridian system, our chakras, what some people also call the nadial complex, which is another one of the etheric circuitry systems that works in the body. And as we're moving into fourth density right now, which is literally the next evolutionary layer of the physical human body. I know everyone's into 5D right now, and that's a real thing, but the physical plane that we are on, this is in a fourth density frequency range right now. And so the bulk of my mission over 2019 has actually been understanding, working with those frequencies, viewing and kind of working with the process of how especially our organs are expanding. The organs are also ascending. And so what do I mean by that? Things like our liver, the spleen, there is a fourth density energetic layer that surrounds or is activating within the layers of the physical body. And so what does that mean? What that means is that many of us begin to experience certain types of symptoms or feelings or maladies or sometimes emotional issues at certain age stages in the physical life process. And so for a lot of us, as we go through this ascension timeline, many of those difficult manifestations are often caused by blockages, implantations, or pieces of non-organic emotional energy that will reside in our body. So for me, this year has been all about exploring and working with those things. I have a bit of a process now and I can see there's a few people that I've done sessions with on here. What we do is we literally take a tour through your body. It's kind of like a meditation in which we work through structures. We go to the spleen, the liver, the heart, the meridians. And so what we're doing is it's almost like we're flushing the energetic plumbing. And so I might be going on a weird tangent there, but yeah.
No. We always just keep rolling with it, and you always say that, but you don't need to say that.
Oh,
We're
I
good.
do. That's quite literally like a tagline I have at this point. So
We have. It's okay.
It's
hey,
all good.
man, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm always self-conscious.
Yeah.
To some degree, you know. We got one question. We'll come back to it. I wanted to ask you in regard to your practice and your method. So there's a lot of energy practitioners out there, and a lot have come on here, and they're all vital. I'm kind of interested in how you work. So when you have someone in front of you and you're going to go through the body like that and kind of take that tour and recognize or locate and integrate whatever you do. How much is the other person involved? Do they guide? Do they say this is what I'm seeing, or I mean, how does it work?
That's a really good question. So oftentimes how these things go is kind of in the beginning, I'll sort of connect with someone. It's always on Skype or on Zoom or something. We just sort of talk. We'll get a little bit of a feeling for the energy. I'll kind of ask some questions about what's going on in your world. And then we do a bit of a reading. And this is one of the greatest things about, or one of the funnest things about the work that I do is I get to use the tarot. We will draw cards. And I have a modality called multi-dimensional tarot in which we we literally look at specific structures, emotional frequencies, timeline elements. We kind of get a little bit of a picture of where we're placed within what I like to call this, timeline network that we're on. And then from there, we go into kind of like a meditation. It's a process that I do with people in real time, both, in the moment. And essentially what we're using, and this is kind of a can of worms, but I'm just going to go there. I believe this is an extraterrestrial healing modality that is being once again offered to humans. And what we're doing is we're literally creating a scalar wave frequency in the body by way of a vocal and physical vibration. It's a tone that I create. It's like, it's an actual vibration. And so what that is, and what we're also going to be understanding, in the years that are coming, is that it's possible for the human body to transmit what is essentially a scalar wave frequency across all space and time just through the simple aspect of utilizing our fourth density kind of transmission skills. And right now, one of the easiest ways for us to do that is by creating a tone. Many people are doing it, but when we couple that with an intention, a color, a frequency, a meridian, a chakra, an organ, going on and on and on, we have the ability to embed these frequencies and these vibrations with a number of wavelengths. And so what I'm doing is going into this, what is ultimately a fourth density energy kind of sealed, it's sort of like a container. And we begin this transfer of kind of moving that energy back and forth. And so is that me just doing it? I don't believe that it is, because in my opinion, I think really it's up to the individual to allow that healing to go through that process, to open up, allow themselves to receive. They have to be ready and willing for it. What I think is happening in that moment is kind of an interaction between the higher selves. And what I found for healers like myself, what we're doing is really opening a doorway. It's almost like I'm going to open the door for you and go, okay, there you go. This is it. And we're not actually creating the change, but you're facilitating this opening or holding space for people to have their own process. So it's a fascinating
Yeah, that's very cool. And the fact that I like what you said about you basically, whether it be galactic or whether it be higher dimensional, we're for instance, in this case, this modality or this way has been made available and given to people like you. And the fact that it's being implemented in the physical, to me, would seem like a very important thing. In other words, because of the paradoxical yin yang aspect of the way this thing's all made up, this very thick place that we're living, this heavier density, to put something into motion like that would seem to create something. And I guess we do affect all timelines and dimensions and aspects and all that. But yeah, I think that's a powerful proposition to consider for things. For that and for things like that, so I have a lot of respect for, that's why I ask these questions, for people that are pulling down this information.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of the body, somebody did ask if you could, and I'll just say to everybody again, if you have any questions about Ascension symptoms or things with the body during this transition, during these shifts, put them up on the messages. Somebody said, could you expand a little bit on the solar plexus?
Yeah, totally. And in terms of an energy center, the solar plexus is, I believe that's the third chakra up from the bottom of your body. Technically, it's the fourth if you want to go just outside the body. We have a Earth Star chakra underneath our feet. But for most of us, you guys, it's right here, right in the center of your belly. And so what does that actually mean? Chakras, first of all, technically, I think it translates to wheel or circle or, what might even called, like a spinning object. From a physical perspective, it is often the point in the body in which we hold on to or amass great emotions, energies, kind of old things will coalesce and build up. For some people, they'll get what we call that gut instinct or that feeling in their belly that will signal certain things or gives us, when, certain things are happening. That's a really good real world physical example of your solar plexus. And so for a lot of us right now, just as like a collective, we are experiencing what the law of one sometimes calls the yellow ray activation. And so for many people, when viewing the layers of the energy body, the solar plexus right here in the center often shows up, not for everyone, but it tends to be a yellow or almost like a golden energy that oftentimes people will view in the energy body. I believe that's why the law of one calls it that yellow ray activation. But what that is one of the layers of kind of consciousness filters or gateways within the body that will pertain to movements or passageways, healing, momentum that is built in our spiritual and physical progress throughout the course of the lifetime. And so on a mass level right now, we're experiencing an activation of that center. And so what happens behaviorally or in the body or in our lives when the solar plexus begins to activate? Well, number one, if we're dealing with a lot of old wounds or emotional programming or things from family of origin, we could have a little bit of a resurgence of some of those themes. Right now, many of us are kind of having a 10-year and 20-year timeline, kind of like repeat, where certain themes or experiences from just about 10 years ago or 20 years ago, depending on your age, will start to come back. So when the solar plexus begins to activate in the physical incarnation cycle, we'll be asked to kind of defeat old programs, move on from family of origin things, but really what it's asking you to do is begin to trust and awaken your intuition. And so as we're going through this great awakening process, many people are starting to get that feeling like, wait, something is not right, something else is going on. And so from the most base
Yeah,
level,
or
that's a
something's
good
coming.
example of solar plexus. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. I was making a joke as usual. I was just saying, or something's coming. Go and lock the doors, hide in the house. No, I think that makes a lot of sense because I'm a big believer that at the root level, we're integrate. This is all about integration, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, is the fusion of the physical and the non-physical. So when you say, the thing about the intuition, people are coming into it, or it's getting louder, or whatever you want to call it. And then also mention that gut instinct. It's almost like the gut carries a physical representation of intuition. And of course, the other intuition is in the non-physical. And we're bringing those together. And the solar plexus is a big, big part of that, because you're right. Everybody knows we obviously store things all over our body, but the gut seems to be a big, big one. And I've seen people talking about this recently, so it's interesting that you bring it up, because I know I've read 3 or 4 posts in the last month where they were talking about gut sense and gut instinct and gut intuition, that type of thing. Very cool. Shanine wanted to know, and shout out to the Freedom Network. They've always been a big supporter of us, and they inspire us, as she says we inspire them. But she says, what are you seeing during these sessions? Are they, i.e., are beings or symbols or colors?
Oh, nice. I really love that question. Thank you. It tends to be a variety of things. And I think one of the things each of us can understand at this point is we'll each have our own kind of sensory ability. Some people are really good at seeing in that realm. Some people have that clairaudience where they're hearing things. Some people are feeling it. What I tend to pick up in those sessions is a weird mix of, feeling something and getting brief images of it. And so what I've learned to do is kind of work my way almost blindly through areas of the body until we reach an emotional frequency, a feeling, or what sometimes is even an experience. And so there will be times in which we can encounter beings in these sessions, but most of the time it's almost as if we're working through the subject matter or the data or the emotions that are inherent within the individual. And so to answer your question specifically, there have been many cases in which I have physically viewed what appears to be a being, I'll just tell you, in just recently, I encountered an individual that had what almost appeared to be a wasp's nest kind of buried within the throat chakra. And that's sometimes a really weird and creepy thing to view in the layer of a person's body, but it seemed as though they were having dreams or encounters on some astral realm in which they were being repeatedly stung by a wasp. And so, on some level, we could say
That's
that,
trippy.
oh yeah, it was really weird. So on some level, we could say, maybe there is a fourth density energetic being that, resembles a wasp that was, oppressing this guy. But what it tends to be is a physical or visual manifestation of something within our own kind of realm that will end up taking the form of that. So I guess it could be different for everyone, but yeah. I hope that makes sense.
That's very cool. Yeah, it makes sense. You always make sense. You're well put together. Now, okay, so if I look at the work you do, and I look at the work, say, Morgan does, or I look at other energy practitioners, ultimately, to me, all of these things, like what you described, that modality or process you just described, they're removing in shadow. They're removing I don't know what the one word would be, but I'm just going to call it shadow. Now, in terms of the more, yours to me is a very scientific, or more scientific. They all carry the same energy of spirit scientific. The other ones would tend to be more like emotions, traumas, things like that. I hope I'm making sense, but where I'm going with this is in that mode, there seems to be an awareness or an expanded ability to be able to approach the day to day, the moment by moment, from more of a maintenance. Like we've done plenty of work. We've gotten to a point now where we see it coming. We don't get blindsided so much. We're able to take it in and integrate it and move forward. And like almost like a maintenance versus the old, say the shadow work was a school, or training or something. And now we're like kind of applying it. Do you see that type of thing happening in your end of in your practice? When people come and they clear the big stuff, and or do you have a way of approaching the day-to-day maintenance of keeping our shift together?
No, yeah, thank you. That makes sense. I think that I have been noticing what appear to be several different groups of, we'll just say roughly classified, several different groups of people that seem to be at varying stages of this awakening or ascension process. One of those, or what seems to be making up the kind of the largest group right now, appear to be a group of individuals that are going through kind of like a rapid awakening or timeline shifting ascension process that I think for a lot of us has been the bulk of the 2019 year. It appears as though right at the end of this year, come the end of December and moving into January, there it seems to be a large kind of group poised to make some form of an entrance or like an integration period that's sort of coming in. I like to call these sort of group timeline activations. It seems like at this stage, one of the biggest groups I'm seeing has to do with people that are just kind of getting in the door. They've just arrived on whatever this timeline is, and they're coming in with highly pressurized emotions in the body. Some of them have ancestral attachments. Some of them have what are usually some sort of a parasitic thing, like, we might call them like fleas or ticks, but we're trained to think that it's like a reptilian entity. It's not actually what it is, although those are real. But the bulk of the people I'm seeing are kind of newly in the door. They'll have a lot of intensity. It's almost like they've been squeezed through a very tiny opening and everything is like popping out. And so, we have a more severe group that's just getting in here. Then we have, a lot of healers and other people that are going through this process right now, and they will need certain stages, or at certain stages, they will need, maintenance or some sort of clearing. But I think for a lot of us, it's an ongoing process in which we're kind of moving up and down through what I like to call timelines, or really just, vibratory states. And so on some days for me, it's totally just about, maintaining a vibration. On other days, it's just this uphill battle in which I'm with every other person in this world trying to, get through the freeway in LA. And,
Right.
So
No kidding,
there's a
especially
multitude of groups.
in LA. Yeah, especially in LA, right?
Yeah.
God, I just had a question. I just had a question. Shanine threw me off with her comment. Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So, like, taking into consideration, one of the things I think that people can agree on over time, and certainly this year, has been the transition moving from linear to quantum. So whether they believe, whatever degree of quantum experience or awareness they're having. But as a practitioner, what I see, and I'm not saying I'm a practitioner, I'm asking you as a practitioner, is the level and the level, the frequency, or the availability of the ability to offer code and to exchange code between two people in this place, this intuitive non-physical place where at some level it is an equal energy exchange. But it's moving so fast. I've talked to quite a few practitioners who have said this year that their practices and their techniques and the modalities, it's changing rapidly. Yeah. Everything is moving very, very fast. And what was new today is old tomorrow. Are you seeing a quantum effect on with your clientele? And I do understand it sounds to me like you're getting people that are coming right into this thing. We're literally just waking up, basically, to the point where they're going to, come see someone like you and get some help. But are you seeing that in your practice? Are you seeing it in people? Are they picking up this information that quickly and applying it?
I think in some cases people are. In some cases, people have a lot of growth and they just need some help. It's almost like I just need to get this wound tied, patched up, and I'm going to get back out there. Some of us will come in very quickly. Some people only ever need one clearing, and that's a bold thing to say. But some of us will only ever have to really move that energy once. It's very, very rare, but. So I think it's quite literally different for everyone. I noticed that, in kind of going back to your earlier comment of this changing or this frequency changing, what I did notice over the path of this year is that it seems like we actually shifted from this, what I believe is this 1260 Gregorian timeline frequency or frequency measurement of time to what I believe is a 1320 frequency. And so what does that actually mean on the experiential plane? What it means is that we're experiencing the flow of time differently. It's part of this ascension timeline shift process that we're going through. So we're able to experience, learn, and go through so much more within, just the period of time that you and I are on this, talk here. So much more is happening than it was a year ago or 10 years ago. And so, I think for each of us, what we're able to absorb or take in or work with from that expanded frequency range is a little bit different. In my own work, I would say like a couple of years ago, it was utterly different. And I was pulling on people's fingers and I was, trying to make incisions in the body. And I was like, I have to be physically with you in the room to do this work. And I think that everyone has noticed over the past year that all of those things are no longer necessary on some level, whether it's positive or negative.
Well, and that's what happens. Yeah, that's what, like if I look at Reiki, and I don't know a lot about Reiki. I was just talking to Denise about it on the previous show, but it's like it's taken on a new, like, it's like no longer it's almost like they talk about the morphic code. I know we talked about this before, as Morgan explained it to me, and you have a morphic code of Reiki, and we actually can go in and tap into that and pull all that information down without having to go through the motions. Not that everyone's different. Like you said, everybody goes through things differently. Somebody just put up a comment here. I'm glad I woke up in 1994 and have had a slow and steady, easy and graceful transition. But
I remember it's 1994. Like, that was a very, very, that was an awesome year.
You weren't even born yet, were you?
Oh, yes, I was. I'm much, much older than you think. But yeah, definitely. I graduated high school in 1995, so that'll give you a little bit.
So okay. So you're like 3 years old when I graduated high school. So don't talk about that anyway.
Oh, hey,
but part of, I guess, and this is a good part of what I was trying to get to was it's becoming obvious that every morning it's out with the old, in with the new, because it's becoming obvious that we are picking up from each interaction that we have, whether it be a session or whether it be us doing a show or whether I run into you, next time in LA, I mean, there's stuff there's stuff happening that seems to be opening up wider and wider and wider, which has got to be related to the expanded awareness and people's desire to grow and, people holding on to the truth. So I don't know. I just think it would probably show up, and it sounds like it has in your practice.
Oh, it certainly
now
has.
You did I think when I was in LA, did you go to the I forget what it was called, the one over in Ventura Beach with Corey
Dimensions of Disclosure.
Dimensions of Disclosure.
Yeah.
So you went to that. I know you went to Resonate Fest, and I know I've seen you a couple places here and there. So what was that like, going to Disclosure, whatever it's called, Dimensions of Disclosure? with 7, 8, 900 people in attendance and so many different speakers. And I'm not talking about the, the meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
straight 3D. I'm talking about just going into an environment like that, being as super sensitive as you are, and being around all that energy, because I know there
Yeah.
had to be a huge disparity of energy.
Oh,
What was that
absolutely.
like?
It is overwhelming, to say the least, in both positive and negative ways. I would say dimensions of disclosure and just that sort of conference circuit, or whatever that disclosure scene is as a whole, it's an incredibly mixed bag. But the conference itself was, in my opinion, I think just those things alone are some of the most important things we can do to gather together and to kind of discuss, allow ourselves to be ourselves. One of the things I hear at these,
Yeah.
like conferences or like a convention, is that I inevitably meet these people and they're like, this is the only place where I feel like I can actually talk about all the crazy stuff and nobody looks at me
Is that
weird,
the truth?
and so people feel very comfortable there. I think along with that comfortability comes also a really big shift in frequency. And so for some people, it's incredibly blissful. For other people, and I've experienced this as well, it becomes very triggering, and all of our wounds and the,
Yeah.
the issues that we share
Yeah.
with other people, it can become very toxic. This year for me, I think it was one of the most important kind of milestones, because a big aspect of the mission that I'm on right now is getting this word and this frequency and this process of clearing out to the public. Because one of the really cool things about the scalar wave frequency that I'm using is once you experience it, once you experience this frequency, your body is able to use it. It's not an initiation, it's like a remembrance. And so I take these sort of, these like physical gatherings as probably the greatest opportunities to begin transmitting that frequency of whatever other remembrance is for each of us. So yeah, it was incredible, and I hope to do many more. So
Yeah, I think I love your explanation about the triggering and all that too. I think I'd like to have one called mirrors of multi-dimensionality.
nice.
Come see
Yeah, there
all
you
the
go.
mirrors that you want to. And they have a big sign above the door that says it's never them, it's always me. I'd love to, no, seriously, I'd love to have just like a raw, real kind of gathering, and just, and just like, like you said a while ago, yeah, you go through this, then you got to go through that, I mean, it's the same for everybody. We all put our socks on the same way, unless you're some of those people that don't wear them.
Right.
So now, do you have any coming up? Are you going to be going to any that you know of
Yeah.
anytime soon?
Thank you. We're actually leaving this evening. We're going to Estes Park, Colorado, for the Star Knowledge Conference.
You're going to
Yeah.
Eddie Hensley's still.
It
I know.
could be. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Star. Yeah, it's in. I'm pretty sure this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Somebody told me. A friend of mine told me 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I think it's got James. I can't even say his last name. Gilliland, Laura Eisenhower.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
A
right
bunch
on.
of other individuals, Chief Golden Light Eagle as well. Yeah, it's my first time heading out there, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'll be doing a multi-dimensional workshop on this Sunday there, and it's actually free if anyone happens to be at that conference. Yeah, good.
And I'm curious, how are you making these connections? Are you going to the festivals and saying, hey, I want to do something, or are you starting to get some expanded awareness about you, or people are calling you?
Honestly, I'm not sure yet. I have been one of those people, and I know other people have this, is, I had no idea how to make stuff work. I had no idea how to get into anything. I didn't know, that you have to pay to play, or you got to do this or that, or you got to know those people. I came into this going, I just have a mission, and I just, I'm just here to tell this thing. And I found out very, very quickly that unless you have a huge YouTube channel, or unless you know someone, most of the people are not even they will not even pay attention to you. So for me, it has been quite literally just emailing and texting people and saying, hey, so is it okay if I come and do this thing at your workshop, or, like your conference? Like, can I join too? And, that's kind of a silly way to go about it. But, honestly, I didn't know how to get into this scene. I just said, hey, can I join?
I've been guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, you need an MC? Hey, do you have a
Totally.
place we can put a microphone and a speaker? No,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, hats off to you. Big props to you. And that's a big thing too, that seems to be coming up, is that those people that are here and that watch this replay in these communities, particularly those that have specific, you know, purposes that they're well enough aware of, that they have confidence in or they're practicing, are being called to step up.
Yeah.
And that seems to be an expanding theme in what people are talking about, channelings, downloads, and the whole nine yards. It's let's step up now,
Yeah.
like we're going to be needed, basically, something like that. Do you pick up on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that each of us at many, many different stages of this physical lifetime are going to be called to step into that mission, quote unquote, whatever that is. And that's one of the biggest kind of questions or the things that everybody comes, into my practice about. The reality is, that mission or the thing that we're stepping up into for each of us is totally different. We have many of those throughout the physical lifetime. For me at this stage, it was incredibly painful and very, very vulnerable to stand up and go, okay, guys, I'm working with the ET technology here, and I'm going to start clearing implants out of your body because, for a lot of us, we were working in a whole other realm. I was working in, like mental health and like addiction treatment. And, I had to be willing to literally drop all of that and step into another realm. And, for me, that was a natural thing. For other people, there are varying levels of that thing that we're stepping up into. I would say at this stage, the most important thing that we can do is just state, voice our truth. And if that means doing that on Facebook Live in front of one person that watches for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
I believe that's what we need to do. Because, especially
Yeah.
for that throat chakra activation, which is one of the biggest things people are experiencing right now. And what we've noticed about throat chakra, or what's ultimately also the thymic chakra, for a lot of people that are becoming more and more empathic, is that when that energy rises in the body at certain stages, you're going to get passionate about something. You will need to channel it into a new kind of undertaking or a new version of you. If we don't, oftentimes we end up getting sick, we end up getting toxic, we start, recycling old wounds. There's a really interesting kind of thing that occurs when we reach that layer, but yeah, it's absolutely real. So
Right on. We do have we have a question. She says it's a long shot niche market question. Ascension and pregnancy. Any thoughts? Shanine's, I believe, 3 months into her pregnancy, maybe 4. Any thoughts on that?
ascension and pregnancy. Oh, I like that. I think that, well, I don't know that let's put it this way. It is my personal understanding that many of the children that are being born right now, just in the past few years, are carrying a much different or a much altered sort of like a genetic code, or maybe even dimensional templates within the body. And so, my thoughts on that are that you are quite literally about to give birth to, this new race of human 2.0, this new version of human beings that are coming in. And I think that's an incredible thing. What does that mean specifically? I think, time is going to tell. And, as we go through this process of the next, decades of our life, we're all going to watch how, the children that are being born today are utterly different than they were. I know you and I, we're completely different beings in that, version of us as well. So who knows where that will go. But yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
that question.
I would think it. Yeah, I would think it's a blessing. The show we did, I've already done 2 shows this morning. I thought there was only 1 show before this. But the first show, we had a baby on there, Martin McNichol and his wife.
Sweet.
And the baby was just a little over a year old. But they were talking about how 5 days after he was born, that he told them what his name was. And also talking about how Martin was talking about how the baby is in his field when he does sessions, and some other stuff that went on. So I would imagine that type of energy, like just say these children born in the last couple of years, they've got to. I love the way you described it. A different template. If it's a non-physical etherical thing, or even on the physical level, DNA, or a little bit of both. that they would actually, without saying anything, just being around them would be, would be elevating and
Oh
expanding.
yeah,
I mean, it would have to
absolutely.
be, they're clean and we're not. Well, I
Yeah.
guess we're getting clean.
Right. I think the telepathic frequencies with a lot of children are incredibly active. And for many of us, as kind of a non sequitur, I think by the time this physical lifetime ends, we will be very, very close to working within that telepathic range, within the body of, all is known, all is apparent, all is aware. There's no gap, in between the transmission of information. And many, many people are already experiencing that. I think to kind of go back to the idea of the template changes in children, we as adults, or really anyone, we are also experiencing that same template change. However, for us, it often comes at the cost of, certain types of symptoms or emotions or processes that we go through in the physical incarnation, because they're already coming in with the expanded frequency range. We have to go through this interesting process by which quite literally our chakras are kind of like compressing. And so for those of us that are able to kind of look at what I call the kind of readout or the frame of the fourth density energy body, and for fifth density it's entirely different. But what we're actually turning into is 3 energy centers. The chakras sort of like compress and mold into what I think right now they're calling them Dantians. I think that's just one of the words for it. But what it ultimately is 3 primary energy centers in the body. And so why are our bodies changing into that? As we go into this fourth density realm in which we're working with a much more expanded frequency range, the sort of what we might call like the frequency of our physical body is also compressing and concentrating and moving into what will ultimately be in fifth density actual life cycles, just one point of light. That's why a lot of times we see these light beings as just one little orb, because at a certain stage, that's the only vibratory form needed. And so we're getting closer to that. But a lot of these kids that are coming in, they'll already have this 3 energy center template already online. So it's a trip.
Right on. Yeah, she says Paul Brighton, Dantians. Is that what you said? Dantians?
You got it. Dantians.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like now are you doing this work just locally, or do you do it online too?
We are all online at this point. All of my work is done almost entirely over Zoom, Skype, or phone, working with people, all, countries all over the world. I haven't worked with anybody in China yet. I'm excited about that. And a couple other random places. But yeah, I've heard of people from all over at this stage. So I'm deeply grateful.
Right on. And what was it like to, I mean, you're in LA, right? What suburb do you live in?
I am right near the La Brea tar pits at a strange, undisclosed location underneath the La Brea tar pits.
Undisclosed location. But I mean, like from there, like, because if you're doing your work out of the house, so you're in good shape there, you can, but you have to step out, and stepping out in LA is not that easy, especially where you're at. You got a lot of driving, but and then going to Sedona. I mean, how did that feel? Like, on your energy field. I mean, how did it feel to not be in such a rat race?
You definitely notice it. I would say, just kind of being on the freeway in LA, and it's a super base like comparison, but just being within that area with all of those people in a region that actively uses elements of frequency interference. And, for those of you guys that are wondering, what does that mean? How will I know there's frequency interference? All you got to do is notice those fake trees on the side of the highway that look like cell phone towers, or those big dishes that are up there. And so one of the things that's happening in Los Angeles as a whole right now is there's a lot of concurrently running kind of frequency experimentation things that are happening. And some of those have a very, very serious effect on our emotions. A lot of it affects our lymphatics. 5G is a really good example of that. But within the metropolitan Los Angeles area, there's an incredible amount of frequencies bouncing around. What I noticed is as soon as we kind of leave this sort of LA basin area, things tend to lighten up. you know, your emotional state will at sometimes even become a little bit more triggered, because it's almost like going through these frequency ranges, or what some people call a frequency fencing, although that's more of an internal thing. It can also be described on the physical plane. We tend to get triggered, we tend to get headaches, the body becomes dehydrated. You know, going into a place like Sedona was pretty chill. You know, I don't know that I react to the harsh frequencies of, you know, like a place like LA anymore, because I believe that it's possible to kind of like configure the energy body through our own self-work and things like Qigong or like yoga, or even just forms of physical, visceral, you know, like manipulation. We can create somewhat of a barrier toward that. But yeah, it definitely
Yeah,
gets better when you leave. So
that's where I was going with it. You know, if I start thinking about what you were talking about, and I'm aware of it, or 5G, you know, and I got to say, you know, we went from LA up to Washington State and then down to Shasta and Sedona. So we've been around a little bit, drove by Area 51. That was trippy.
nice.
You know, it was obvious. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I give respect and I see that that's out there, but you know, I got to ask myself, how in the hell can anything have power over me and affect me that I can't contend with? In other words, whether I work directly with that energy or whether I'm working with my own energy field each and every day and maintaining it and expanding it and shedding shadows and whatever I'm doing, that it would further negate any influence it would have on me, because I guess it all gets down to whatever happened here, whatever, we gave consent and we're no longer giving that consent. So I got to believe if that's happening by our free will and the energetic thought patterns and all other energies that it puts out, that stuff is, I just see it as harmless, to be honest with you. But I know that's not probably a popular position to take. This is just the way I have to navigate my universe. But I would just think it's, and again, I did see a lot of heavy stuff. We saw it in Reno. We saw it in parts of LA. It's thick, no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, it's thick with a lot of different types of energies. But I think you're right. You know, in being there, you've been exposed to it more and more. So you, like you said, you, one way or the other, you conform or adapt or modify yourself in order to walk with more balance. I guess that's the only way to put it.
Yeah.
It comes. Yeah.
It certainly does. And your comment makes sense. And here's the reality about frequency interference, or even just parasitic attachment, or, you know, I mean, if you want to get down to the base level of just negative energy within the body, the reality is you might not be affected. You couldn't, it's entirely possible that you would not be affected by harmful frequencies or certain frequency ranges, because what we're finding is oftentimes, you know, the level to which we are affected or oppressed, or at the very least just kind of made contact with by negative frequencies, is almost always entirely based on whatever we're carrying of our own unhealed trauma, our own triggers, our own wounds, whatever that may be. It's very much like a bait frequency that we have. And so for some of us that are able to really work with that and get through that, you know, we're not going to be affected by certain things as much. But on a physical level, you know, you can shift your susceptibility by, number one, doing a really, really deep and intense long-term heavy metal detox. In fact, for all those people that are watching, that's probably, in my opinion, as a person that does this every single day, one of the most effective things that you can do. And it's not just a detox from heavy metals. It's not just, you know, taking cilantro for a week. It's like a regimen that you begin by changing your water, elements of your diet, and especially, you know, removing heavy metal particulate matter from the upper chakras, primarily the gallbladder, a meridian, and the triple heater right here, because these things have a direct impact on your discernments, the physical flow of energy in your body, that crazy running loop that we all have. And you know, that's the thing you're thinking of in the shower, Todd, or at night when you're laying there and you're like, this loop's running in your head. That's where that energy gathers. And so for those that want to build a resistance, for those that want to be able to put up a wall around their body that's like, yeah, man, I can walk through LA, whatever. You know, those are the ways we do it. Heavy metal detoxification, breath work, Qigong, strengthening that field. But yeah, it's totally possible. So
Right on. Yeah, no, this is very interesting. That's very interesting, intriguing stuff, no doubt. No doubt. And I just feel like, consciously, the conscious efforts we make are, are what they are. But I also think that at some unconscious level, uh, you know, or in other words, it's happening and we're not always conscious of it. We might find out a few days later or whatever the case is, or figure it out later. But I just see that as one of the things which, falls in line with all, the narrative, people saying, the matrix breaking down or the cabal this or whatever, so it's all the same thing. I mean, it's all the same thing, the same story being told.
Yeah.
There's one question here before we get out of here. Charlotte says, do you have a recipe you can share for the heavy metal detox?
Oh, absolutely. And I will start by answering this by saying there are many. Each person is going to respond differently. A lot of people right now are asking this question. There are many different people with many different formulations. I will tell you what has worked for me. And this is what I, often recommend to my clients. The first thing that I took that really had a noticeable impact on what I believe to be the oxidization of heavy metals from the upper chakras was a thing called fulvic acid, Fulvic. And you can get that in liquid or drop form. And that's probably, in my opinion, one of the easiest things to begin to take because number one, it's kind of mild on the body. It doesn't have a big impact. It tends to not cause the emotional burn-off effect, that other things will. But fulvic acid is very important because it reaches right past that blood-brain barrier and it begins an oxidization process of breaking up these heavy metal bonds that really form right along the sphenoid bone and making a literal ring around your head. So fulvic acid is very helpful. And you'll know that it's actually working because some people, not everyone, the first time they take it, it's almost as if you can suddenly breathe a little bit deeper. This is an experience that I've had in other people because I Googled it afterward and I was like, what, other people felt this? But one of the ways you'll know that process begins is you'll take something like fulvic acid and it's like, suddenly you feel a little bit more volume. Along with that, you can take silica. That's another very mild thing that will assist in creating more of a crystalline bond between the cells rather than, some of the other stuff. Silica is very helpful for creating almost a harmonious internal atmosphere. I would say magnesium as well is going to be really helpful for maintaining certain elements of emotional kind of volatility that will come when we begin to move heavy metals out of the body. So those are the first three things I would start with. Along with that, there's things like diatomaceous earth. There's iodine, there's kelp, there's cilantro extract. There's a multitude of things that work in varying levels. I prefer to take kind of a bit of a softer route. I don't like the emotional burn off that occurs because you guys will know when you're on this detox path if it's working, which is why a lot of people stop because they'll take it and within a day or two they feel really sick or super emotional, and that's your body starting to dump. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Fulvic acid, magnesium.
No, that makes
silica.
that makes total sense. Total sense. Thank you for that information. And if you guys want more, you know where to go find Matthew. Yeah, let's do it again.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
A while, but let's do it again down the road. Best of luck to you on all these things, and maybe I'll run into you at one of these gatherings.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, maybe we'll collaborate on one. We came close.
Almost.
Peace
It'll
out,
happen. We are still on the same timeline, so it's coming, brother.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. All right, man. See you
All
later,
right,
bro.
Todd.
You take care.
Take
All right,
care,
man.
brother.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.